The climate connection of our plate, the hidden warning of the food system. How to avoid a climate disaster Part 4. Imagine a family is sitting down for dinner. There is roti on the table, there is rice, there are vegetables, there is milk, there is curd, and in some houses there might be meat as well. Everything looks normal. Looking at the food plate, no one thinks about a climate disaster. But the fear starts right from here, because the very food system on which our life depends, that same food system is also a big source of greenhouse gases. In the first part, we understood the fight from 51 billion to 0. In the second part, we saw the story of electricity. In the third part, the hidden climate cost of cement, steel and plastic came forward. And now the question is our plate connected to climate change too? The curiosity is exactly this, is the very way of making food, the food that keeps us alive, slowly making the planet sick? In Bill Gates' book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, there is a very important chapter, How We Grow Things. Meaning, how we grow things. Here the talk is not just about fields. The talk is about the entire food chain. From sowing seeds in the field to applying fertilizer, from rearing animals to milk and meat production, from cutting forests to making agricultural land to food waste, every step is connected to the climate. In Bill Gates' framework, agriculture, forestry and land use together account for a large part of greenhouse gas emissions. In the book, the agriculture sector is linked to around 19% of emissions, and this fact tells us that the climate fight is not just a fight of power plants and factories. It is a fight of fields, animals, soil and kitchens too. But understanding agricultural emissions is a bit different. In electricity or manufacturing, there is more talk of carbon dioxide, but in agriculture, the real villain is often not carbon dioxide, but rather methane and nitrous oxide. Methane is the gas that comes from the digestion of animals like cattle, and nitrous oxide can come from the wrong or excessive use of fertilizers. According to IPCC values, both methane and nitrous oxide are more powerful greenhouse gases compared to carbon dioxide. The warming potential of nitrous oxide is very high. This is the reason why even agricultural practices that appear small can have a big impact on the climate. Now understand this in a simple way. When a farmer grows a crop in the field, he needs water, soil, seeds and nutrients. When a dairy farmer rears a cow or buffalo, he needs fodder, water and care. All these things look normal, but energy, land and biology are working inside them. Food production is not a machine-like process where output can be achieved just by pressing a switch. It is a living system. And in a living system, gases are formed, soil changes, water is used, and if management is not right, emissions increase. First, let's talk about livestock. Ruminant animals like cows, buffaloes, sheep, and goats can digest grass and plant matter, which humans cannot digest directly. A special process happens in their stomach, which is called enteric fermentation. Methane is formed in this very process. Animals release this methane through burps. In common language, this is no small matter. Agriculture plays a big role in global methane emissions, and a large part of agricultural methane comes from livestock digestion. According to Our World in Data, agriculture is the largest contributor to methane emissions, and in this, the digestive process of animals like cattle is an important source. The climate story of meat and dairy starts right from here. When we consume animal products, we do not look at the final food item alone. Behind it is the entire chain of animal feed, land, water, manure management and methane emissions. In products like beef, this footprint can be higher because it takes time for cattle to grow, more feed is required, and methane is also released. Compared to chicken or plant-based foods, the emissions intensity of beef is generally considered higher. This does not mean that every person has to leave their food culture immediately, but it must be understood that food choices have a connection to the climate. Now there is a sensitive matter here. Food is not just calories. Food is culture, it is tradition, it is taste, it is religion, it is family habit, and it is economy too. In some regions, dairy is a part of life, somewhere meat is a part of the cuisine, somewhere rice is the staple food, somewhere wheat. Therefore, if the climate solution comes like an order on people's plates, there will be resistance. The correct approach is that choices, affordability, and better alternatives be given to people. Like plant-based meat, better dairy practices, methane-reducing feed additives, improved manure management, and food waste reduction. Bill Gates discusses plant-based meat and cultivated meat as possible solutions. Plant-based meat refers to products that try to give an experience like meat in taste and texture, but can reduce the need for animal raising. In cultivated meat, the attempt is to make a product like meat by growing animal cells in a lab environment. The idea is big and exciting, but the challenge is big too. Taste, price, scale, consumer acceptance and regulation, all are hurdles. Until these products are affordable and culturally acceptable, a change on a large scale is difficult. Here, the green premium comes forward again. If the plant-based alternative is very expensive compared to normal meat, why will a common consumer buy it? If cultivated meat remains just an expensive lab technology, its climate impact will remain limited. Therefore, the goal of food innovation is not just to launch a new product. The goal is to make a product that is affordable, tasty, safe, and scalable. A climate solution will become a mass solution only when it reaches the plate of the common man at a reasonable price. Now, after livestock, let's talk about fertilizers. The crop needs nitrogen. Nitrogen is necessary for the growth of plants. But the problem is that the crop is not able to absorb all the fertilizer put into the field. Some part of it goes into the soil and water, and some can go into the atmosphere as nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is a very powerful greenhouse gas, therefore fertilizer management becomes extremely important for the climate. This is the reason why the solution to agricultural emissions is not just eating less or diet change. Smart farming is equally necessary. Many farmers apply more fertilizer because they do not know exactly how much the soil needs. If they apply less, the yield might decrease and the farmer's income can be affected. Therefore, he does not want to take a risk and applies extra fertilizer. This decision is understandable from the farmer's point of view but can become a problem from the environment's point of view. The solution is not blaming the farmer. The solution is better soil testing, precision agriculture, sensors, satellite data, advisory systems, and such fertilizers that release nutrients slowly. Science is opening interesting paths here. Researchers are working on such microbes and biological solutions that can make nitrogen available to plants more efficiently. Some crops naturally benefit from nitrogen-fixing bacteria, like pulses. If major crops can be made better in nitrogen use efficiency in the future, both fertilizer need and emissions can decrease. But this is not easy. In agriculture, any innovation takes time to come from the lab to the field, because soil, climate, crop variety and farmer behavior are different everywhere. Rice production also comes into climate discussions, because flooded rice fields can produce methane. In many Asian countries, rice is a staple food, so replacing rice simply is not practical. But water management, alternate wetting and drying, better varieties and improved farming practices can reduce methane emissions. Meaning the solution again is this, reducing emissions without causing harm to food security. Now let's talk about food waste, which is perhaps the most painful issue. In the world, on one hand, millions of people struggle for access to adequate food, and on the other hand, a large quantity of food is wasted. According to the FAO's Food Wastage Footprint Report, the carbon footprint of edible food waste and loss was estimated to be around 3.3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent without land use change. What this means is that the food that did not go into anyone's stomach, a climate cost was incurred in growing, transporting, storing and wasting it too. Food waste happens in different ways in different countries. In poor countries, sometimes due to a lack of storage, cold chain, transport and market access, food gets spoiled before reaching the consumer from the field. In rich countries, sometimes food is thrown away in supermarkets, restaurants and households. Meaning the solution will also be different. Somewhere cold storage is needed, somewhere better logistics, somewhere consumer awareness, somewhere portion control, somewhere food donation systems, and somewhere packaging improvement. When food waste rots in a landfill, methane can be released. This is double damage. First, emissions occurred in food production, then methane was formed upon being wasted. Therefore, reducing food waste is the most practical and immediate way of climate action. Very high tech is not always needed in this. Better planning, storage, wisdom in shopping, leftover use, composting and local supply chains can also make a difference. Now, one of the biggest hidden costs of agriculture is land use change. When forests are cut to make grazing land or cropland, the carbon stored in trees and soil can go into the atmosphere. Forests are not just a collection of trees. They store carbon, play a role in the rainfall cycle, give shelter to biodiversity, and support the life of local communities. If forests are destroyed for food demand, the climate problem will deepen further. Here that same development dilemma comes again. Farmers and communities need land, need income, need survival. If they do not have better livelihood options, forest pressure will increase. Therefore, in a climate solution, farmers' income, land rights, sustainable agriculture, agroforestry and market incentives are all necessary. Merely saying do not cut forests does not solve the problem until people get a practical alternative. Now there is another layer in this entire food system: population and income growth. As the world's population increases and people come into the middle class, food demand will rise. The biggest change can happen in the demand for animal products. As soon as income rises, the consumption of dairy, meat and processed foods increases in many societies. This means that the future food system will have to give more output as well as reduce emissions. This is the real challenge. To solve this challenge, we will have to keep three things together. First, food security. People get adequate and nutritious food. Second, farmer security. The income and dignity of farmers are saved. Third, climate security. Food production does not heat up the planet further. If any policy ignores one of these, the problem will return again. For a country like India, this discussion is very necessary. In India, agriculture is connected to the livelihood of millions of people. Here, the reality of food security, monsoon, groundwater, fertilizer subsidy, livestock economy and small farmers is very complex. If the monsoon pattern gets spoiled due to climate change, heat waves increase or water stress increases, farmers will be affected first. Therefore, reducing agriculture emissions and making agriculture climate resilient both are necessary together. Climate resilient agriculture means such farming that can stand in changing weather. Drought-resistant seeds, flood-tolerant varieties, water-efficient irrigation, soil health improvement, crop diversification, and better weather advisories, all these can become tools of future farming. The broader message of Bill Gates' book is this too, that along with mitigation, we need adaptation as well. Meaning, we have to reduce emissions as well as increase the capacity to survive with the changing climate. Now let's return to the consumer side. Will every person have to become vegan? Not necessarily. But every person can reduce food waste. Every person can bring a little balance into their diet. Every person can give importance to seasonal and local foods. Every person can reduce unnecessary overconsumption. And at the policy level, governments can make school meals, public procurement, farmer advisory and food supply chains more sustainable. This fact also has to be understood that a climate solution comes from design, not from guilt. If people are only blamed for what they eat, the conversation will break down. But if they get better options, if tasty plant-based alternatives are affordable, if methane reduction practices come into dairy and livestock systems, if reducing food waste is easy, then behavior can change naturally. Climate action will have to be designed not against people's lives, but with life. The story of the food system teaches us a deep thing. Climate change is not a far-off thing. It is in our electricity, it is in our buildings, it is in our factories, and it is on our plate too. In the first part, we saw the big goal from 51 billion to 0. In the second part, we understood the need to clean up electricity. In the third part, we saw the hidden emissions of cement, steel and plastic. And in this fourth part, we understand that the field and the kitchen are also climate battlefields. As historical facts show, there is hope in this battlefield too. Farmers can adopt technology, scientists can make better crops and microbes, companies can bring low-emission food alternatives, governments can make better fertilizer policies, and consumers can reduce food waste. Looking at agriculture by making it a climate villain would be wrong. The correct thing is that agriculture is a part of the problem as well as a part of the solution. Now the story reaches the next turn. We saw electricity, saw making things, and saw growing food. But there is another big sector that is connected to our daily life. We travel every day, send goods from one place to another, and depend on cars, trucks, ships, and planes. And this very transport sector opens the next big story of climate emissions. The curiosity in the next part is exactly this. If electricity becomes clean, factories change, and farming becomes smart, even then, how will the movement that runs the world become clean? Are electric vehicles really the solution? And what about planes, ships, and heavy trucks, which are not so easy to run on a battery?
If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.